Minister. Cuig Noma Jacob.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the House today about the report Monitoring Adequate Housing in Ireland, which was released on the 14th of September and prepared by the ESRI for the Irish Human Rights and Equality Commission. The report focuses on 6 dimensions of adequate housing, which are identified in the International Convention on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights: accessibility, affordability, security of tenure, cultural adequacy, quality and location. This work seeks to monitor housing in Ireland by providing a baseline measurement framework across these 6 key dimensions specifically designed for the Irish context. It raises many issues of common concern to us all: the provision of adequate housing, and we can all agree that with the opening line of the report that adequate housing is essential to the quality of life of individuals and families. A number of key findings are set out in the report. They include findings that young respondents are less likely to own their own home, that migrants are overrepresented on the housing waiting list and in a private rental accommodation, and that lone parents have low rates of home ownership, overrepresentation on the homeless and housing waiting lists. The report finds that certain groups, including lone parents, people with disability and migrants, consistently report a disadvantage in terms of housing outcomes. The report also finds that average rent has increased substantially and that affordability is a key issue. Many of the findings in the report do echo much of my department's own analysis of the housing situation. It is also good to see that many of the issues raised are already being addressed since the report was written through our new strategy, Housing for All, or through other measures like the White Paper on Ending Direct Provision and the new housing strategy for people with a disability, which is in development. The Government is keenly aware of the housing challenges facing people right across this island. The impact of the housing crisis is felt in every family across our country, from hard-pressed tenants stuck in a rent trap to those of the most vulnerable end of the crisis who will spend the night sleeping in emergency accommodation or worse, sleeping rough on one of our city streets. It is only by taking measures across all aspects of our housing system that we can begin to improve the situation for our citizens across the board. And this is particularly evident in the report when we consider the broad range of issues that have been highlighted. Housing for All sets out our plan and takes a genuine whole-of-government approach to get to grips with the crisis and to improve the lives of all our people. We recognise the impact of the crisis and the scale of the challenge and are committed to solving it. In terms of access to housing, the Government has put in place historic levels of investment with in excess of €20 billion through the Exchequer, the Land Development Agency and the Housing Finance Agency over the next 5 years. Over 300,000 new homes will be built by the end of 2030, including a projected 90,000 social homes, 36,000 affordable purchase homes and 18,000 cost rental homes. It's the largest state-led building programme in our history, and this massive increase in output will provide essential access to housing across all tenures. Access to housing will also be supported by a range of measures to tackle homelessness, to deliver on our commitment to end homelessness by 2030 under the Lisbon Declaration. Housing affordability has been put at the heart of the housing system. The Government has already delivered the state's first Affordable Housing Act and the Land Development Agency Act. These provide for new schemes for the delivery of affordable homes by local authorities and the LDA, as well as in private developments under the First Home scheme. We also have legislated for an increase to the Part 5 requirements to deliver social and affordable homes. We aim to deliver 36,000 affordable homes, averaging 4,000 per annum. We are providing a new affordable housing fund to better support local authorities, increasing the supply of newly constructed affordable homes on publicly owned lands. In addition, funding for the First Home scheme will be matched by participating banks, creating a fund to be utilised over the coming 4 years, primarily to support affordability constrained first-time buyers. Furthermore, the LDA's Project Tusig is being funded to unlock and accelerate delivery of all sites. All these measures together will make home ownership more attainable for those groups mentioned in the report, and in particular the Fresh Start principle, which is being applied to applications for affordable housing or local authority mortgages, will help those, such as lone parents, to access home ownership. We recognise that some of the findings in the Commission's report on rental costs and affordability certainly reflect the reality on the ground for renters, and please be assured that affordability for renters is also at the top of the agenda for this Government. We know that there are continuous upward pressures on rents in the private rental market due to a strong economic and demographic growth and the restricted supply available. The most effective way to reduce and stabilise rents in the medium to long term, with benefits for the entire sector, is to increase supply and accelerate delivery of housing for the private and social rental sectors. I would also like to add that the vast majority of landlord and tenant relationships in the residential sector are working. less than 2% of tenancies become subject of a dispute referral to the RTB. We are taking a number of targeted measures and initiatives to provide better security of tenure and greater rent certainty for tenants, as well as enhancing the supports and services available to both tenants and landlords through the Residential Tenancies Board. I note that Minister O'Brien received government approval today to cap rent increases at 2% per annum in rent pressure zones. This new cap will only operate when general inflation is higher than 2%. Key provisions are now being drafted as a matter of priority and are set to form part of the Residential Tenancies No. 3 Bill 2021 to be published as soon as possible this month for urgent enactment thereafter. The cap will apply immediately upon enactment. The previous cap of 4% on annual rent increases was replaced on 16th of July 2021 with rent increases in RPZs currently prohibited from exceeding general inflation as recorded in the Harmonised Index of Consumer Prices. The aim was to bring about far lower rent increases for the estimated 74% of all tenancies which are in RPZs. HICP averaged at 0.37% or 73% over 3 years to July 2021. Given the unexpected rise in inflation, a rent increase cap of 2% per annum will apply under this bill when the HICP inflation rate is higher. We have also extended rent pressure zone protections to the end of 2024. We are also bringing forward legislation to address long-term security of tenure, including by providing for tenancies of indefinite duration, subject to legal advice, and for the enhancement of tenancy protections for those living in dwellings that are affected by a receivership situation. There are many other measures that are being introduced to develop a vibrant and sustainable rental sector, too many to outline in detail. There is one in particular I would like to mention, which is the strengthening of the framework for enforcement by local authorities of overcrowding provisions, as is in the area that is mentioned in the report. The Government is aware that unscrupulous landlords can sometimes take advantage of tenants, and that while in general Ireland's housing stock is actually one of the least overcrowded in Europe, the Government recognises that there is a problem with pockets of overcrowding. We are committed to empowering local authorities to deal with it more effectively, and this will be delivered through proposed legislative changes to the Housing Act 1966 by way of a new bill designed to strengthen the statutory framework for the enforcement of its overcrowding provisions. The necessary legislative changes will be progressed through the Housing and Residential Tenancies Bill 2022, which Minister O'Brien will bring forward as early as possible in the new year. Security of tenure is recognised in the report as a key dimension to adequate housing. As I have already mentioned, legislation is being brought forward to address long-term security of tenure in the rental sector. As recognised in the report, there has been a decrease in owner-occupied repossessions in the years following the financial crisis, and there are a number of supports available to owner-occupiers in financial distress. This includes the Mortgage to Rent scheme, which will continue to assist those in mortgage arrears who are at risk of losing their homes. We are strengthening the MTR scheme to ensure that it is helping those that need it, with delivery of an average of 1,000 solutions every year. The report also examines issues around cultural adequacy, looking in particular at those in the traveller community and those in direct provision, and highlighting disadvantage experienced by lone parents, young people, migrants, people with disabilities, travellers and others in the Irish housing system. It is important to note that significant progress has been made in this regard. The report itself confirms that pronounced downward trend in family and lone parent homelessness. In both real numbers and as a proportion of overall families, the numbers of lone parents in emergency accommodation are falling. The progress that continues to be made on reducing homelessness is thankfully not just limited to this cohort. Since its highest level in October 2019, the numbers of individuals in emergency accommodation has decreased by 2,039 or 19% from 10,514 to 8,475. This is based on the homeless figure for September that were published on last Friday on October 29th. I want to assure you that there is no shortage of will or determination to deal with the issue of homelessness, which will benefit all vulnerable cohorts. It remains a top priority for me and Minister O'Brien, for our department and for government. Budget 2022 reflects this commitment by allocating 194 million for homelessness services, as well as 40 million euro in the provision of health supports. Housing for All contains 18 specific actionable items designed to eliminate homelessness by 2030, and our focus is now delivery of these actions. These further interventions will work in tandem with the continued provision of homeless housing assistance payment, the Homeless HAP and the Homeless HAP Place Finder service, which is an important aid for homeless households or households who are in danger of falling into homelessness and who are finding it difficult to secure HAP tenancies. The report notes that in 2019 funding for traveller accommodation was not fully drawn down, but I'm happy to say that in 2020 full use was made of the €14.5 million funding available for traveller-specific accommodation. Accommodation for traveller households is provided across a range of housing options. Over 3/4 of travellers live in standard housing, including local authority and approved housing body funding housing and supported tenancies in the private rented sector. Funding for these housing supports are provided through the respective budget lines. The traveller accommodation budget is provided solely for traveller-specific accommodation, such as halting sites and group housing schemes. Accordingly, funding available for and spent for the provision of accommodation solutions for travellers is much broader than often reported in the spend under the traveller-specific accommodation budget. With reference to the commentary in the report on lack of data in this area, I am pleased to add that we are in the process of including a new element in the social housing application form to gather improved data about the numbers of those identifying as travellers who require social housing support, with support for further evidence-based planning for this cohort. In relation to refugee accommodation, together with local authority sector and the housing agency, we continue to support the Department of Children, Equality, Disability, Integration and Youth in their implementation of the White Paper on International Protection and Irish Refugee Protection Programme 2020 to 23. In particular, the Housing Agency will provide support through the provision of expert advice on sourcing, delivery and management of housing and accommodation as required. On housing quality and habitability, new building and extensions or material alterations to existing buildings must comply with the legal minimum performance standards for the design and construction of buildings as set out in the Building Regulations 1997 to 21. The building regulations are subject to ongoing review in the interests of safety and well-being of persons in the built environment and to ensure that due regard is taken of changes in construction techniques, technological processes and innovation. They provide for minimum standards for energy and ventilation. Nearly zero energy buildings for dwellers was introduced in the building regs of April 2019. These new regulations improve the energy performance of new dwellings by 70% over 2005 building regs, and provisions equate to an 8.2 BER for a typical new dwelling. Improving energy efficiency improves the health and comfort of those living in dwellings and ensure that whilst we achieve more energy efficiency in buildings, we also build healthy, sustainable and durable buildings suitable for the Irish climate, both today and into the future. There are also minimum standards set out for rental properties by regulation, which are compulsory for landlords. As set out in Housing for All, targets for the inspection of rental properties will be set at 25% of all private residential tenancies as soon as the COVID-19 public health restrictions permit. Since 2018, the Department has increased exchequer funding it makes available to local authorities each year to aid increased inspections of properties and to ensure greater compliance with the minimum standards. €10 million has been approved for 2021, and this amounts to a 400% increase in funding since 2018. In 2021, we also launched a new 10-year energy efficiency retrofit programme that will see approximately 40% or 36,500 local authority-owned homes retrofitted to a B2 cost-optimal BER standard by 2030. The newly revised programme provides funding for insulation, window replacement and advanced double glazing, heating replacement with heat pumps and adequate ventilation. This scheme works in tandem with the planned maintenance programmes being introduced for local authorities. The new Climate Action Plan also includes an action for the Department of Environment, Climate and Communications in relation to non-social housing, which commits to retrofitting 500,000 homes to a B2 rating by 2030. These measures will benefit householders by providing warmer, easier to heat and more comfortable homes while enhancing air quality within the home and reducing the amount of expenditure on energy bills on those using oil or gas. I note the need for better data expressed in the report, and I would certainly support this, and it is a key area for my department. It is important to note that our department has had considerable involvement in housing-related research in recent years, including in respect of affordability and housing quality. Several of the papers cited in the Monitoring Adequate Housing report were produced with close involvement of our department, which operates a housing economics research programme in partnership with the ESRI. My department already publishes a very large amount of data on our website regarding housing, but we are always looking to improve the data available, and I know that our Statistics and Data Analytics Unit will carefully reflect on the findings regarding the data gaps identified. While I've had the opportunity to mention some of the key actions in Housing for All, which are most relevant to the issues highlighted in the report, there are many more actions set out in the plan to deliver a more sustainable housing system which will benefit all, including the most vulnerable. Delivery of the plan is now our focus and is being overseen, directed at the highest level through the Cabinet Committee on Housing, chaired by Taoiseach, and through the Secretary-General of the Delivery Group. There are dedicated work streams led by the relevant Secretaries-General on investment, industry capability and public service delivery. To keep us on track, the actions in Housing for All will be updated on an annual basis, including timelines to sustain momentum on delivery during the lifetime of the plan. I would like to thank the Irish Human Rights and Equality Commission for sharing this work and its findings, and I look forward to listening to the commentary from members here this afternoon.